Hello everybody and welcome back to another Kings of War Battle Report. I'm Visibly Riley, and this week we have Empire of Dust versus Salamanders in a 2300 point battle of Dominate. First up, we have my opponent from last week's list returning, but with a minor correction. But just in case you forgot, this Salamanders list opens with 2 troops of Ancients, followed by a horde of Ceremonial Guard with the Brew of Strength. Then we have 2 hordes of Tyrants, one of whom has the Mead of Madness, the other the Jesse's Boots of Striding, better known as the J Boots. Then we have a regiment of Scorchwings, 2 regiments of Rhinosaur Cavalry, 2 Lachilodons, a Fire Drake. This was the mistake. I called it a Gekkotas Slasher last week. It was never that. It was always a Fire Drake. Followed by a Phoenix, a Clan Lord on Raptor, and finally Firebrand. Moving forward onto my Empire of Dust army. It opens with 2 hordes of Skeleton Warriors, followed by a regiment of Mummies. Then we have 2 troops of Skeleton Archers, a horde of Enslaved Guardians with the J Boots, then a horde of Enslaved Guardian Archers with the Piercing Arrow. Then we have 2 Bone Giants, a Monolith, 2 Balefire Catapults, one of whom has the Scarab Jars upgrade, so has Shattering, so a Shatterbolt. Then we have the Soul Snare, an Undead ASB with the Tome of Darkness, a Revenant Champion with the Crystal Pendant of Retribution, ooh, Trixie, and of course an Undead Horse. And finally, we have Sebek Ray. Now with that out of the way, let's go over Dominate. Dominate is a very simple scenario. It's just King of the Hill. At the end of the game, you add up the unit strength of all the units with the majority of their footprint within 12 inches of the center, and the highest unit strength wins. Simple. Last week, I know I said we were going for simple scenarios, but we actually just rolled this one up randomly and got it, so just sometimes it happens. Here we see a depiction of that. This is not exact, but this little piece of... this little patch of white on the table that I've highlighted there, that is essentially the dead center of the table. So if you're ever trying to figure out where it is, there it is. And 12-inch radius is a rather large circle at the end of the day. So it looks a bit like that. This is not measured though, so I might be off. Now let's talk about the terrain. We have 2 height 9 forests, followed by 2 height 0 ponds. Then we have 3 height 3 hills, 2 height 2 obstacles, and 2 height 6 impassables. I am looking to dig my own terrain back out of storage. It's been a while, so we'll get some variety soon. Now with that said, let's go into deployment. My opponent won the roll-off and chose this side of the table, and we're going to start on the left side as I would see it. So starting over there, we have the Scorchwing Regiment, followed by the 1st Rhinosaur Regiment. Behind them is the 1st Horde of Tyrants with the J Boots, and finally to the right of that, we have the Clan Lord on Raptor. In the center of the table, we have the Horde of Ceremonial Guard with the Brew of Strength, and behind them is 1 Ancient Troop. Then to the right of that, we have the Phoenix, the 2nd Ancients Troop, the 2nd Horde of Tyrants with the Mead of Madness, the 2nd Rhinosaur Regiment, and both of the Lachilodons. And finally, off here on the right, we have the lovely pair of Firebrand and, of course, Fire Drake. Now, opposite of that, we have both the troops of Skeleton Archers, followed by the Undead ASB with the Tome of Darkness and the Soul Snare. A lot of my Empire Dust models, especially the 50 mil guys, aren't done yet, so they're not actually on their base. They don't really fit that well. So instead, if you're ever wondering, it's where the base is, not where the model is. And behind those, we have both the Balefire Catapults. The one with its actual crossbar is the Shatterbolt. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that one. I'll probably just sculpt it in the end, if I get around to it. To the right of that, we have the Enslaved Guardian Archer Horde with the Piercing Arrow, and in front of that, the 1st Skeleton Archer Horde. Now, to the right of those skeletons is, well, a 2nd Skeleton Warrior Horde. Then, did I write Archer on that other one? No, I didn't. I think I said it, though. A Skeleton Warrior Horde, both of them. And behind it, we have the Monolith. To the right of that, we have the Enslaved Guardian Horde with the J Boots, so the normal melee guys. And off here on the right, behind the Enslaved Guardians, we have Sebek Ray, we have the Mummy Regiment to the right of that, both the Bone Giants, and finally the Revenant Champion with the Crystal Pendant and the Horse. I actually have a model for this fully painted, but I don't know where it is. My miniature collection is a complete mess right now. It's just been a while, and a lot of it got destroyed in a very, a fun movement. So anyway, I'll have to look for it. And let's see, let's talk about the deployment a little bit here. Yeah, my opponent has fewer drops than me, but especially for an undead army, you're gonna stick it together, right? Like undead or in this case Empire of Dust are about support elements. So my list is an inch away from each other almost all the way across the board because I need to actually be supporting them with units on units, right? Like that's how I want to do it. Versus the Salamanders army, which has gone for a very spread deployment here, right? Going for those pods that people like to talk about, right? So we have a pod here of 4 units, we have a pod here of 2, and then we have a pod here of what is that, 6? And then a pod of 2. So I think that's what my opponent's going for. I am just going to I decided to put all of my melee on the left here, and that is because in the dead center of the table, which is right here, I'm just going to put my skeleton hordes there. They're really high unit strength. They're very difficult to actually take out, even though my Empire of Dust list is not running the most heal. I can still grind pretty well. So I'm just going to put them in the middle of the field and force the Salamanders to fight me. It's going to be... It's not the most difficult fight to fight through them, especially because I got the worst side of the table, but still, I think I'll be just fine there. And so my ideas here, because my opponent deployed in this pod style, is just to bring all of my melee into these 4 units because I think I can outfight them, and then try to just take down this stuff with ranged as well as I can. So I'm just going to try to X out their sides, and then the center, which is beefy and difficult to kill, well, I don't actually have to kill it if I just out unit strength it in the end. So that's the plan. And we move on to turn 1. So turn 1 goes to the Salamanders. On the left here, they just advance forward, staying out of my charge range. Simple stuff. In the center, you can see the Ceremonial Guard heading forward, and they're doing a pretty good play. I wonder if deploying them on this angle would have been better. They might have been able to get farther forward. But this is the beginning of an idea, which is all you have to do, move forward and then block your flank with this building, because again, all of my melee, as I said before, is over here on my left. So if you block up this flank, I don't have any flyers, so I can't actually get around to the rear to get bonus attacks. So I'd have to just punch into the front, which is not a winning battle for me. So it's a pretty good plan, I think, assuming that this group of 4 units can cause enough disruption and or kill enough of my melee units to make this a non-issue. So over here, a blurry picture. This is something that I think I solved now. I think my camera, I just had the aperture settings wrong. So this should be the last one that's truly this bad. But anyway, let's talk about it a little bit. My opponent decides to not move forward too much here, and that is because the table is rather interesting. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are like, don't put hills in deployment zones. Sometimes you can. You don't always want them to be there, but if you know what if you're setting up the table afterwards, like, you know what armies are going to show up and what they're capable of, it's fine to do this. Also, you can prepare for it a little bit. So like this table has these impassables placed right in front of these smaller hills that are in deployment zones. So there are these rather large shadows that you can't shoot through. Right? So that is what my opponent's using. So my catapults are up here on the hill, but I can't actually see most of this stuff, right? Because I can't see past this impassable that's height 6. And then combined with the height 6 forest, well, that's a lot of inability to see. These units over here are just whipping around to make it so I can't see them for the most part. One catapult can fire at the fire drake, the other one can't, and currently the archers can't either. So these guys, who are terrible, by the way, at damage, right, can see, and then I've got the soul snare, but it's unlikely I'll do too much, is I think what my opponent's going for. But let's see what their shooting can handle. So I think we only have the Gekkotas or I just said it again. These are the Scorch Wings. Take aim, fire at my Revenant King, do 0 damage, so whatever. So with that, we see the end of turn 1 for the Salamanders, and let's move into turn 1 for the Empire of Dust. So turn 1, Empire of Dust, I advance forward with my line. I'm going to keep out of charge range with my melee elements for the most part, right? Like, I don't care if the Rhinosaurs charge me. I just don't want to eat any combo charges, right? And specifically with the Enslaved Guardians, because they're my most powerful unit and I have no redundancy, right? Like, I don't have a second unit of them. So Yeah, my plan here is just to make it so I place them out of charge range of the Tyrants, out of charge range of the Clan Lord, and then out of line of sight of the Scorchwings. The Rhinosaur Cav can come and charge me, and it might behoove my opponent to do so, because then I don't just sideswipe the whole thing and go over here and fight the Ceremonial Guard along with my skeletons. But this would be good for me, right? If they go in here solo, I think I can kill them in one round, right? With the amount of damage I have over here. So that's going to be my plan, to try to take apart this this flank piecemeal, right? Which, if we actually go back a picture, you can see my opponent is sort of, right now they're keeping this line here, but you can see over here they've pushed forward, right? So that's going to bow my line, right? So I'll end up looking something like this in the end. But one of the strengths of playing an undead army like Empire of Dust is that bowing like this isn't that big of a deal, because you still have the ability to surge. So that's what I'm going to go for there. In the center and on the right, you can see the center. Yeah, I just advanced with my skeleton wall. None of this stuff worries me. The Ceremonial Guard are out of charge range. These guys currently can't see, so if they want to, they're going to have to walk into the forest, which means they'll be -1 to hit, because I don't think they can actually clear it with their leader point. And the Tyrants can't charge any of these skeletons. Now, again, the Rhinosaurs can, but I think that's a fine. I think that's a fine grind, right? Like, if they want to charge into skeletons and fight them for the rest of the game, go right ahead. On the right, I do advance a lot of my units, or at least shuffle them around to hide. I turn with these guys, so they're going to snapshot at the Fire Drake. I've got one catapult firing at the Fire Drake, the other catapult firing at these Rhinosaurs, and then both these skeleton archers here are going to fire at the Fire Drake. These ones moved to protect the Soul Snare, right? Because all I've really done here is go, I probably won't do enough to do anything to this Fire Drake this turn, but next turn I've set it up pretty well, just because it can't actually get to my Soul Snare, and the only thing it can fight are skeletons, right? Skeleton archers, and who cares? Now, I'm sure if any of you follow my posts on Fanatics, I talk a lot about Elven Archer troops being amazing. Skeleton Archer troops aren't really that, because the Elven Archer troops, the things I really value, yes, they're 5+ range, and they do have an elite shot, and that's what people generally like stop there. But that's not actually what makes them good. It's the combination of having that ability, right? They can shoot, and they're okay at it. But the big thing is that they're speed 6, they're melee 5+, they're defense 4+, and they're 10-12 nerve. So they have above average speed, above average defense for a ranged unit, and above average nerve for a ranged unit. So that's really the power here. These skeleton archers don't have really any of those buffs, except for the fact that they do have way above average nerve, because they're a dash 11, right? But they're still defense 3, they're still speed 5, and they're still melee 6+, so not terribly helpful. Anyway, I brought them. So my catapults, my snapshots, my Soul Snare, and then both the archers here take aim, and I do 12 wounds, which is really good. I'm actually really surprised by that. I know that the Soul Snare did 6 this round, so, you know, Soul Snares are... Who would have guessed that the Soul Snare is good? But yeah, Soul Snare does a lot there, and then the rest pepper in for 6 more. The archers that I just spent some time talking about how bad they are actually managed 7 hits on this thing, and I think like 4 wounds. So, you know, sometimes you just roll hot. But that is an amazing waiver. A kill, obviously better, but I'd rather just have the waiver and not have to do any rerolls than get a kill and then turn it into nothing. A waiver is huge here. So here is the end of turn shot. Hopefully the last blurry picture again. So yeah, things are looking pretty good. I did get an early waiver. I've got no damage elsewhere, and I think things are about to be set up pretty well for me, because I want my opponent to come and fight me 1 by 1 so I can kill them off, right? So let's see what turn 2 brings. So yeah, on the left here, my opponent does just that with the Rhinosaurus, charges into my Enslaved Guardians. I'm not sure this is a good move or a bad move. It's a good move if you really want the Ceremonial Guard forward. I think it's a bad move personally, though, just because I think the Ceremonial Guard could have held back a turn. They're already close enough from where they were, or where they could be, to get to still be scoring, right? So I can't force them out with my skeletons. But yeah, so basically I'm saying I don't think they need to advance this turn. I don't think this is relevant. So blocking up my Enslaved Guardians so they don't charge in here, I don't know. maybe don't do that. Maybe just make it so the Enslaved Guardians are in the flank and then guard your flank. So maybe I could do a surge in there. But I think the Ceremonial Guard on the countercharge will kill the Guardians, right? Like they're 30 attacks on 4s and then 3s with the Crush 1. Maybe bring the Clan Lord over there, to get some extra damage. But anyway, if you're going to push forward, though, you have to send the Rhinosaurs here because you need to block them up so I don't do the exact thing I just mentioned, but with skeletons as well. So anyway, they do that. I'm pretty happy about it. The rest of the units just move forward but stay out of 14 inches of my giants. And over here and on the center, you can see, the Rhinosaurs charge into my skeleton horde here. This is fine. I think this is a neutral play, right? My opponent wants it because the skeletons aren't great. I don't have any Bane Chant, for example, and these aren't Spearmen, so they're only 25 attacks, not 30. So I'm probably not going to do too much damage. Only the Soul Snare, right, is my combat modifier there, and I'm going to need the Soul Snare to deal with the right flank in a second here. So I think this is a pretty neutral term. Both of us like it because the center, my opponent deployed a weak center, so seems fine. And then the rest of the units just move forward. Now, here's a problem. When I measured this unit of skeleton archers, I thought I measured out of range of these tyrants, but when my opponent rolls it, they roll the 5+, they get the 3 for 1. But I thought I was still out of that. So either A, I just mismeasured, right? Like I just deployed it wrong. Or B, I forgot about the Meat of Madness. I'm not sure which it was. But anyway, these tyrants charge into me. That's super bad. That's definitely not what you want because this is my weak flank, right? This is my ranged flank. And getting these tyrants early is super, super, super bad. Like I'd prefer, if tyrants are going to charge anywhere early, I'd prefer my meaty center or the left flank where all my melee damage is. But it is what it is. So in they go. Even hindered, they probably kill those guys, right? And let's talk about the shooting. So these Scorch Wings fire off, do 2 wounds to a Bone Giant. That's actually really good. So hooray for them. And over here, Firebrand fires, does 3 wounds to my other skeleton archers. Considering the other archers got shot or got charged by the tyrants, I don't care about these 3 wounds. These guys are probably just going to die next turn chaffing. So anyway, let's move forward. Into the rest of the shooting, we've got the Lachilodons finally moving up, and they take aim at my skeleton horde here, do 2 damage. Who cares? And over here in combat, the Rhinosaurs only managed 3 wounds on me. That's not too bad. I think they're 9 attacks on 3s, and then they normally would be 2s to wound, but they did clip this forest up here, so they're 4s to hit and then 3s to wound. 3 wounds is about as well as you could expect them to do. So I think my opponent's fine with that. And over here, 4 wounds to the skeleton horde. That's a decent roll, right? Because this is again 9 attacks on 3s and 2s. But hopefully I can just heal that up with the Soul Snare plus the Life Leech, or at least make it manageable. So I'm not too worried. And these tyrants walk right through me. My opponent actually rolls really well for this attack because they're only hitting on 5s, right? But I think they hit with 15 attacks. So it's not like the highest variance thing. Like I expected these guys to die the second they got charged, but my opponent rolls pretty well, walks right through them, as you might expect. And here's the end of turn shot. So as you can see, these tyrants are in a really bad spot for me. I'm gonna have to shoot them down next turn, and on top of it, this barrier I was using to protect myself, it's also protecting them because I didn't actually get these archers onto the hill, right? So these guys will have cover. This is a bit of a misdeployment by me because I saw a hill and I was like, ooh, put war engines on it, and then kind of forgot I had a horde of enslaved guardian archers. I should have put one of the war engines off to the side and utilized the fact that it's a 50 mil. I only have to get that half base onto it to give the hill anyway. So just a mistake by me, but it's going to cost me here because they'll have cover against my shots. So this is 6s again, and I have to get a big range turn here. I still could because a lot of my range is very high variance, like my best stuff, like the double catapults and the Soul Snare. But we'll have to see. But otherwise, I think this is an interesting turn because this is bad for me, this is neutral, and then this is good for me. So we'll see what turn 2 holds for the Empire Dust. Turn 2, First up, I just walk the giants back a little bit out of charge range of the tyrants especially, but not the clan lord. Now, on the previous turn, I had this guy between the two giants, and I think I just missed this play, where my opponent stayed just exactly out of 14, but I was just exactly inside my base, right? So these 50 mil bases are less than 2 inches, in case you were wondering, meaning that my 16-inch charger here could have actually made it to the tyrants if he was exact, but I think I just missed that play. And I would have loved to do that because this is an exploding character, right? I just have to hit and wound once to make it so the tyrants can't go through me, and then big bada boom, right? But I missed it, so I just run off over here to get it out of the way. And then right here in this combat, I really want to send these skeletons in for 2 reasons. One being that I want to use that life leech to get them a bit healthier. But 2, because this flank charge, if I kill off the Rhinosaurs, I'm in a really good spot if I reform, which I'll show you later if I win. But I'm not exactly sure. These guys probably won't do more than 1 wound. And then these guys, they could wipe the Rhinosaurs out, but they are fearless, right? So I need to actually make sure I do it. So I send the mummies in as well because it's not too bad of a charge. The tyrants would be in the mummies' front if I fail. These guys are in the flank, right? But I'm not too worried about that, especially because at the time I kind of forgot that Scorchwings have Pathfinder, because of course they do, right? They're on fire. But yep, I'm gonna go for it. Get 1 or 2 more wounds in here. Should push me over the edge that I need. I'm also a little too close with Sebek here. I'm blocking in my unit. I should probably have Sebek back a little bit, but I kind of forgot that that Sebek has very inspiring, not inspiring. So I placed them there, which probably still is bad. But anyway, with that said, let's go over here to the right. Yep, I countercharge with these skeletons because of course I do. And then I do a cheeky little play here with the skeleton archer troop remaining, which is I've walked all my units back, right? So like the soul snares walked back. These guys have sat still, but I've got a 1-inch surge here onto the tyrants if I want it. So the plan is I'm going to fire everything I've got into these tyrants, right? If I roll well, because again, these are high variance units, so you know they hit big, they miss big. But if I hit this hard enough that I go, well, I'm probably gonna kill it because it is a -17, so I gotta kill it, not waver it. I will not go for the surge, obviously, but this is set up as a backup, and then on top of it, because I only have a surge forecaster over here due to the tome. I've also made it so there's just no way that the tyrants can actually make it to my soul snare, because right now if they go straight ahead they will hit my archers, right? They can't do that, and then if they pivot at all they will hit this impassable before they hit my soul snare. So it's not possible to charge me, and then I have a lot of contingency. So hopefully it just works out though. Let's just see how the shooting goes. So yeah, right here, all the king's shooting goes into all the king's tyrants, and yeah, I do 16 damage. So a good turn. I needed this turn to be good. I know last turn was great. It's always good when you have shooting elements in your army if they hit well on the first 2 turns, because that's when tempo or shooting is the most powerful. But I hit really well here. The soul snare again does 6 wounds, which is how I remembered the first turn. But yeah, I do 6 wounds with the soul snare. At least one of the catapults hit. I did some damage with the enslaved guardians, and I think the archers themselves even contributed again. So they're doing pretty well. But yeah, 16 damage is great. And yeah, I do manage to wipe them out because that was a not double ones. So good job, everybody. So in combat, though, I do well here as well. I healed all my wounds off with the Soul Snare, with the Drain Life, and then I managed 1 wound here, which doesn't seem like a lot. You know, you can just Radiance it off, you can heal it, whatever. But it does strip them of 2 ranks of Thunderous, so now this is 9 attacks on 3s and 3s instead of 9 attacks on 3s and 2s, so I will take that. This is a grind fest after all. And over here, yes, I do manage to kill off this the unit of Rhinosaurs that were fighting my enslaved guardians, and this is the reform I was talking about. So this is a pretty good maneuver. It's not perfect though, because I do mess one thing up. First up, we've got the mummies. They turn to face the everything that's left on the flank, so those 3 units. And then on top of it, they're also making it so you can't double charge the Guardians. The Scorchwings can't see me, and then if the Clan Lord wants to join the Tyrants, because of the order of charges, so one will have to charge, then the other will have to charge, they just can't fit to fight me, right? So the Clan Lord can't charge in, and then because the Tyrants won't be able to go past them, and then vice versa. So that's what the Mummies are doing right now. They can both charge into the Mummies if they want, but the Mummies are actually a -18 with regen 5+, and of course are inspired. So my opponent probably doesn't want to even try that combat because it's actually worse than just going in here, right? And then the other thing is that, yeah, I get to turn this unit towards the Ceremonial Guard and begin that grinding, because the Ceremonial Guard are a little bit larger than me. If they charge, they will clip this pawn that I'm in, and then hinder themselves, so there'll be 30 attacks on 5s, and then wounding me on 2. So I'm okay with that. And then the Enslaved Guardians have turned to, again, keep those units in their front, but also to preclude any units from charging into the rear of these skeletons. The Clan Lord might be able to do it if they want. I think they might just be barely out of 16, but the big thing is that the Tyrants can't fit. Which is the only thing I'd really be afraid of there. So the Tyrants cannot fit into the skeletons at all. Now, the one mistake I did make here, that I see at least, is that I butt these 2 units against each other. So there's probably a way that I could have done everything I just said and not have done this, because I need a a minuscule amount of distance here, so I can always disengage. But in my head, I was thinking that you can't be engaged at the beginning of the combat, so you'll have to always charge me if I don't declare a charge against you. It's not a counter charge, and so on and so forth, which is not how it works. It's covered in the FAQ. There's an erratum specific, or not an erratum, but an actual FAQ about this, which is that if you begin a turn engaged, you can just fight. So yes, I should have left a small gap there to make it so I can disengage, but I didn't. So anyway, move on to the end of the round. So this round was obviously excellent for me. I killed off one of the Rhinosaurs. I killed off a Tyrant Horde, which is huge, huge stuff. And I didn't have to put any of my units in places that they don't want. So currently my positioning is really good. But this is what I'm talking about by with the bowing, right? So the undead are always going to bow if they don't win turn 1, right? Because they will just bend as they can adjust themselves. They can just adjust themselves later in the turn if they want. So with that, let's go on to turn 3. So turn 3, first off, we've got the Scorchwings. They're going, yeah, we're just not that helpful against this flank, so they just fly off. This is actually fine. They can still shoot at my injured giant, get a little damage there, and then this giant is more than 14 inches away from them, so I'd need a double surge if I wanted to kill them off, and I'm not in line of sight to just charge. So, yeah, fair on them. I did make a small mistake with this giant on my previous turn, which is when I backed it up, I could have placed it into this forest, so the Tyrant still couldn't charge me, but the Clan Lord and these guys could, which don't matter. So I should have probably done that to keep my leader point in the forest so I could always charge this way, but I didn't, so we're moving on. We've got the Tyrants here taking not really the bait, but because my opponent realized that this is not a great charge, but I think they thought kind of had to go for broke now, right? They have to utilize the sacrifice of those Rhinosaurs if they're going to, and now's the time. So they pop their J-boots because they do hit the forest as well when they go on through, which was also, part of my setup here. So yeah, they go in, they pop their J-boots, and they're just going to try to kill me in one go. Good luck to them. Off here in the center, you can see, yeah, these guys clip the pond when they come on through, which means that, I'm not too worried about that charge for now, and I'm just going to try to grind against them in the same way I'm grinding here, right? So my plan is coming out, which is, I kill off the flanks, and then I just grind against these while I move unit strength in there and win that way. So speaking of that, my opponent does continue the grind here. The Fire Drake and Firebrand both charge into these almost dead skeleton archers. These guys are doing great so far. Generally, I bring Deadeye crossbowmen, which are an excellent unit. I really like those, but I just didn't have the points for them because I brought the weird Revenant champion in this list. I just, after I saw Trash played it in the Australian Masters, I've been like, oh yeah, I want to fit that Crystal Pendant character into a list. So I put it into this one. So I had to get the point somewhere. So the first thing was this. But they are doing pretty well just because I rolled well with their turn 1 and their turn 2. Well, I rolled well with their turn 1. The turn 2 shooting was okay, but it was irrelevant. And so I got the damage that I would be expecting Deadeyes to do, and then after that, with this kind of a setup, the Deadeyes would just be doing the exact same thing as this unit, and they don't have any increased defense. So I'd just be paying 20 points more for this plan. So I'm pretty happy with this. So maybe all Archer troops are good. I don't know. I've just been raving about how good the Elven ones are, because they are. But, maybe there's something here too. Anyway, so they're about to be obliterated. I do think my opponent makes a weird move here with the Ancients, right? They're going around the rock this way. Why not go this way, right? Like if you're going into the center, you're projecting threat. You're actually participating in the scenario. And I don't have anything over here. Like once these guys are dead, I'm not gonna put the Soul Snare over there. You have plenty of units that could get me anyway. So I don't quite get this Ancients move. But anyway, with that said, let's go into shooting. So first off, these Scorch Wings. Yep, they do 2 more damage to the Giant, which is really impressive. 4 damage in 2 turns on a Def 5 unit. Probably should have put him in the woods a little bit. But anyway, with that said, let's move on to the Lochilodon. And my opponent takes aim, fires at my Shatterbolt. Originally wanted to shoot at my Monolith. And I'm like, well, why? Because the Monolith is a Def 5-17 monster, right? Or a Titan. Kind of a waste of time. Like, it's a giant rock. The catapults, on the other hand, are dash 11 and defense 4. So just, you could just shoot there. And, I should have kept my mouth shut because obviously it dies. Actually, it really sucks here too because my opponent rolls a 7, goes for the reroll, misses it, and it's like, whatever. And then I sit there and measure my undead ASB, which you'll see in a bit. And I'm exactly out of 6. So I'm like, oh man, I just poorly positioned my inspiring there. So I lose the catapult this turn, and especially the Shatterbolt. Anyway, needlessly. The archers here, they get obliterated. Who would have guessed? And right here, my opponent gets me back up to 6 wounds. So a pretty good turn for them, considering, they're hitting on 3s and wounding me on 3s with 9 attacks. So 6 is pretty solid, but not a roll. And right here, I'm up to 8 wounds. My opponent only sinks 7. That's in the low end of the average there. But still, it's not horrific. It should be fine. And right here, my opponent does 9 wounds to me, needs an 8 rerollable. Actually hits it on the first one, but thankfully I have the reroll due to Sebek down here. That's bad news bears for those tyrants. And here's the end of turn shot. This is what I'm talking about. If I just left a little bit of room, I could have disengaged any amount of distance, and then when they charge me again, they're going to be hindered yet again. And I increase my ability to stay alive by a lot. So anyway, this is the end of turn shot. Again, it's still not bad. I don't think it's bad for either of us. It's anyone's game because this left flank, or my right flank, is melting, is going through me a lot faster than I thought it would, just because of that misplay with the archer troop right there. But still, I do have a chance to kill these guys off. This guy is at 12 wounds, so it's a 16-18, already at 12 wounds. I'm not too worried about it. I can't fire the catapult, of course, because of indirect fire, but I still have, some units that can deal with something. Plus, I think I have some tricks that I'm gonna pull out my sleeve. So let's see how that goes with turn 3 for the Empire of Dust. So Empire of Dust, first off, I move the giant into the woods a little bit. I think I just walk forward and then pivot towards the Scorch Wings because, there's no reason to be facing this way yet, not with the ability to surge. So I'm just gonna grab cover. These guys do a Pathfinder, so I'm like, well, fuck me. But still, I don't think they'll be able to drop me in one go. The mummies turn towards them as well. I think I do back them up a little bit because I was just messing around with their movement to see how far I had to go to let the giant through. So, I think I might adjust that in a second to be a little closer this way. But speaking of that giant, I charge it and the Revenant Champion into the side of the of the tyrants, and then I send the enslaved guardians on the counter charge there. So that's really bad for the tyrants. They don't want to be in this situation, but you got to go big to go home, I guess. We've got the skeleton warriors here countercharging because I couldn't think of something better to do because I can't disengage. So I'm just going to try to heal the one wound off, or maybe get a lucky boxcar. And over here, we have the second warriors. Yep, we're just going to continue this little bump and grind. Ain't nothing wrong with it. And the rest of the unit. So this is the interesting move I have, which is I can roll the Soul Snare, which is facing this way, right? So the Soul Snare is going to try to kill off this Fire Drake real quick. And it kind of has to, because I don't have any other ranged attacks on this, because I need this unit to actually charge into Firebrand this turn, and I'm just slightly out of 1, meaning that I would need 2-inch surge from this guy. That's a 50-50 shot. That's not worth it. So instead I'm going to have the Monolith go, and the Monolith has to cast Surge before any other shooting attacks happen that turn. So yeah, I'm not going to be able to fire even my Snapfire shots, which sucks, but you take what you get. But I am going to go for this charge here, and I'll show you the way that protects me in a second. So let's go into the shooting. Sebek here is going to heal up my Enslaved Guardians for 4, which is pretty good. Only heal 5. I do have 2 rerolls though. And right here we fire off the Soul Snare, and I obliterate this thing. Yeah, I don't do 6 this round, I know that, but it's still it's like 3, 2 or 3 wounds, which is pretty good still, because I'm going to be able to heal my skeleton warriors that are fighting against the Rhinosaurs to the left of there. And right here, I fire my catapult at this Kilodon. I do 4 wounds. That's great, because I believe I also get a waiver. And this is the Surge. I did do this first. It's just the last picture I took. So this Surge, I am actually right there at that base edge. So I should be a little bit closer, but things are messy in real life. So I'm a little bit closer. And then I should be, I should have slid down to hit my War Engine here, the Soul Snare. So the reason why I did this is because if I do 1 damage, which I did end up doing, if I do 1 damage to the Firebrand, I turn off her shooting, which is priority number 1. And then the second one is that I'm actually taller than any of my other units here, so the Firebrand can't just see through me, right? And if they want to disengage, you can do a little sneaky trick with individuals in disengaging, which is both the disengage part of movement and the individual's free pivot at the beginning of the turn. Both of those are predicated as before issuing your movement order, meaning that you can resolve them in the order you want, right? Because Kings of War has kind of a messy timing chart, as in they don't have one. So you can choose to, like, if the unit's right here, right, you can choose to change facing this way first and then disengage 1, or you can disengage 1 and then change facing, whatever you want, right? As long as you are still in contact with the unit when you do the disengage. So yeah, what I mean by all of this is that no matter how my opponent slices it, no matter how they disengage in the order they do it, if they move back 1 first and then they turn, or they turn and then move back 1, they can see my base, of course, right? Because they can see this part of it, but they are going to end up with their leader point in my flank, and it's just not possible to charge there. So I have protected the Soul Snare for another round by sacrificing the shooting from these Enslaved Guardians, who weren't going to do a whole lot, because the Rhinosaurs that are fighting against my Skeleton Warrior Horde to the left of this picture, yeah, those are all height 4, so I can't really see anything that well. So I might as well just go in here and keep the Soul Snare up for 1 more turn. So speaking of these guys, yep, they do go in there. They manage... They managed quite a few wounds. I think I did like 2 or 3. So, that's great. I life leech 1 off and so on and so forth. The picture wasn't taken yet, so I think I end the round at 2 wounds. And right here, yeah, you saw it before, that little preview shot. I get him up to 18 wounds, and I double on it. So, you're going to get them. It's the most unfortunate part of that double one there is that the unit is devastated, which is definitely a rule that doesn't do anything. So who cares? You can just heal it off, Radiance of Life, or just straight heal will put them back down to 17, which means they're no longer devastated. So that's unfortunate for me. I'm probably going to lose my Enslaved Guardians after that double one, but still, at the end of the turn, I do think that this is an interesting game state, right? Because I've actually swapped where things have gone well. So now over here on the right, things are going pretty well because I think these Ancients are poorly placed, and then I've abused the Firebrand's inability to charge into either of these war engines right now, right? Actually, they could probably charge the catapult, but I'm not sure she wants to. And then on top of it, I took out the Fire Drake, so that thing's gone. So I'm pretty happy with things over here. And then over here, yeah, I'm probably going to lose my Enslaved Guardians, but I still have plenty of my melee, and I've killed off, like once I drop this Tyrant Horde, because I'll have to waste another turn doing it, but once I kill it off, my opponent has basically no melee power over here, only in the center of the field. So things are very interesting. So let's see what turn 4 has to hold for the Salamanders. So turn 4 Salamanders, first off, we have the Scorchwings running over here. And yeah, it's a weird move, but we'll cover that during my turn. So my Giant's just going to sit there, I guess, and, accept its fate. We have the Tyrants, of course, countercharging into my Enslaved Guardians, who are stuck at 4 wounds right now due to Life Leech. So that's not the best place for my Enslaved Guardians to be. They're probably going to die. And then we have the Clan Lord going for an interesting charge here into the Skeleton Warriors. Now, it's not the worst. This is a good charge. That's not what makes it interesting. It's interesting because, yeah, so they were over here first, so they move forward, they nimble pivot, go forward, and then they get their regular pivot where they can hit me and charge in. Now, you might be thinking, well, they can just hit the corner. Not really, because they can't fit their 50 mil base there, and you have to still be touching the point of contact after you do the charge and your teleport movement, right? Now, the thing that we messed up with, this is my fault because I wasn't thinking about it during the game, but this guy should be butted against the impassable, I believe, because you have to take the shortest route. So the shortest route should be the closest point of my unit where you can actually place that base. So they should be trapped against the impassable, but I missed it at the time. So instead they just, go over here. Let's see here. Yeah, these guys get a counter charge here. I'm at 7 wounds. I'm probably dead there as well because of this the counter charge. So, and off here on the right, the grind continues. Yeah, they're at 2 wounds now. So the grind continues. I'm not too worried about that. And Firebrand decides to just run off and not really participate this round, which I'm super okay with. Gives my Soul Snare one more turn to do something important. And generally, Soul Snares don't last for 4 turns when your opponent's been next to them the entire game, right? So I'm pretty happy with that. And over here, because I generally use my Soul Snare as kind of like a honey trap, right? Like I put it out on the field and go like, yeah, come over here and kill this. It's really powerful, so you need to get rid of it. And it dies early, but I gain a lot of advantage. So we have the Phoenix here casting heal onto the Tyrants, getting them down to 14 wounds. So yep, Devastated's gone. Good rule. And then we have the Lochilodon that can shoot, fires into my catapult. My remaining catapult does 2 wounds to it. So I guess it's just, a bit of a catapult hunter now. War Engine Hunters, right? Lochilodons, that's what you think of. And then we've got the Enslaved Guardians here. Yeah, my opponent gets them up to 13 wounds. That's not the best roll. It looks like they did 9 wounds again. But that should be enough. Except my opponent rolls a 3. Yeah, it's even worse because my opponent needs a 4. Rolls a 4 on the first roll, does the reroll, gets a 3. So I'm not devastated. I've got my second shot at this. That's super bad. And I'm like, oof. But, I double one to give them that chance, so I guess they just didn't make the most of it. And here's the nail in the coffin, which is, I put the Devastated token out here. I actually was thinking at the time that this unit was a -21, not a -22, but apparently they're -22, so they should not be devastated, and I'll remove it later. But my opponent gets a double 1, and I'm like, oh no! So going from a 3 into a 1 into a Snake Eyes, ugh. So heartbreaking, because yep, this unit's gonna get 1 more round to mess around. So over here, the Rhinosaurs get me up to 7 wounds, but I've got another round with my Soul Snare, so I'm not too worried about it. And here's the end of turn shot, and this is heartbreaking if you're a Salamanders fan. They did nothing. They killed 0 units. They didn't even devastate a unit, even though the token's out. What a rough turn. Let's see what turn 4 for the Empire of Dust. Maybe I'll just match them, tit for tat. So turn 4, Empire of Dust. First up, we turn the Giant around because I can rear charge the Scorch Wings with them. I am 8 inches away, so it's an 8-inch surge if I want it. I do send the Revenant Champion in as well, just in case I fail with the Giant, which is entirely possible. So I turn around with the Mummies, just in case, this unit, I double one it again, or, any craziness happens. I need the Mummies over here. I'm not playing the Mummies particularly well this game, and that's because of 2 things. One is the terrain. We have 2 impassables, and they're placed in such a way that I can't go like, Mummy Regiment, Horde of Warriors. It's too wide. Or that's too wide to really fit in there. But secondly, because I generally play them with the 2 regiments of spears, so I run like, regiment of spears, so I run spears, and then mummies in the middle, and then I just put bone giants between them. So that's a great formation, and I just don't have access to it in this list. So instead I'm running them on this flank, and then my opponent didn't put anything over here. So they're not really doing a whole lot. They're just playing backup and sort of cheering everyone on. But they are close enough. They're within striking damage distance to get into the center of the field. But they should probably be somewhere over here with better deployment. But anyway, I send the Bone Giant back into the flank. Hopefully I can kill these guys off. And then, yeah, these guys just countercharge the Ceremonial Guard, because why not? I can't do the Clan Lord, so I might as well go for a Boxcar. Over here on the right, yes, I do get the countercharge here again. I turn with the Soul Snare. I'm now facing this way. I'm going to try to kill off the wounded Lachilodon real quick. And then I'm going to go for another cheeky surge into Firebrand. If I get the kill on Firebrand, more power to me, especially because I do get to shoot first. So I'm going to fire at Firebrand with my bows, then I'm going to charge in. And I don't think that'll do anything, but it's a chance. You're saying there's a chance. So first up, we've got the Monolith. I cast onto my Bone Giant, and bam, I make it. So originally, here's the thing. Originally, my opponent's like, fuck, did you just make that? Because I roll 7 out of 8 hits with my Surge on that guy. And I'm like, I measure it again, because I told him it was a 7-inch Surge, right? I measure it again, and I'm like, no, I'm just exactly out of 7. So I do have to use Sepic Ray to get this rear charge, which might have been a mistake. I might have wanted to heal the Enslaved Guardians a little bit more, but I just wanted to make sure these guys were dead instead of in my backfield. So I go for the 1-inch Surge on the Giant, and I get some heal on it too. So good enough. Again, I do have heal 5 with 2 rerolls, healed 3. Yep, we're gonna go there. And the Enslaved Guardians, this is gonna be a little out of order because the shooting I'll have to explain at the end. But the Enslaved Guardians and the Bone Giant do manage to kill off the horde of tyrants. I do not double one it, and then I position them in such a way that there's no way that this Clan Lord can actually charge into the front, right? Because currently, in my front arc, there's no way to make it because these are all the gaps here are greater than 50 mil. So I should be fine there. And over here, yep, the Bone Giant does manage to kill off the guys there. Now, I forgot to mention this during the previous turn, but when I was fighting the tyrants with my Revenant King, my opponent originally went like, well, I'm gonna die anyway, so maybe they were like, maybe I want to kill off the Rev King and then charge into the Bone Giant and just get some crazy damage out, because I'm not running a Shobik. I don't have crazy healing in this list, and I probably can't heal with the Drain Life, right? Sorry, needed a drink. And I turned to them and reminded them that I do in fact have the Crystal Pendant, and I'm like, okay, just, this is the one you get. Everyone gets one. I told them at the beginning of the game that I had it, and I'm like, I have the Crystal Pendant on this character, right? I'm not going to remind you again about it, but I get that this is not my normal list, so you don't want to do that. And he's like, oh yeah, of course, I'll just charge into these guys, and then all that craziness happened. But the second thing that happened with the, kind of on that on that bent is that I asked them what they were doing with the Scorch Wings. I'm like, why run over here? Are you just trying to tempt my giant so I have to use my surge? And they were like, no, I need a table 6. And I'm like, we're playing dominate, not control. And he was like, oh fuck. He'd just forgotten for a turn or two, which might explain the Ancients move over on the right side of the field where they're going around the rock on the right instead of on the left. Maybe they're going after a table 6. But anyway, I digress. Let's move forward. Here's the end of turn shot. So you see the white knuckles of determination out, really concentration if you think about it. Things are not going great for the Salamanders, but again, they're not the worst yet. There's still room to come back. So we've got no tyrants left on the table. Always a good thing, right? No tyrants. We only have one Rhinosaur. And the Fire Drake is gone, right? These Ancients have finally made it around, right? But what are they going to fight? My archers? Now, my archers do shoot at Firebrand. Granted, Snapshot makes it so individual doesn't do anything. So I fire off, I do 0 wounds, or maybe I did 1 wound. And then I charge in, and I get it up to 4, but she's a dash 15, I want to say. So really difficult to displace. So I don't get the 11 twice. But I do get the drain life onto this Lachilodon. It goes average, but I do kill the Lachilodon, so that's great. And then I get some serious healing here onto my Skeleton Warrior Horde, which is, it's pretty good. So things are looking good for the Empire of Dust, but my opponent has serious unit strength in the center, and I have very weak units, right? So they have 4 unit strength, 5, 6, 7, 9 unit strength in the center of the table, while I have 3, 6, 7, 10, right? But this is at double ones. This is at a 3. Well, it's a little bit better now, but and then this unit's also wounded, so I could lose all that unit strength very quickly. So it's very interesting. Let's see what happens with that with turn 5. So turn 5 for the Salamanders. First up, this guy does make it into me, and that is because of what I was talking about before with the disengage, right? So they disengage back the amount that they can, which is, it's not a whole lot. And then because of their cav base, right, they turn, and now they're in my flank. So I was like, oh man, I feel really bad about that. Not because, of this mess up here, right? Like maybe that's, maybe you can actually charge over here because you just have to be in contact with it. With the contact point. So maybe there was a contact point where, they still had the ability to back up a little bit. The part that I was mad about is that all I had to really do is adjust my frontage like this, right? There's still no way to fit a 50 between these units, and, this doesn't work anymore. But I just didn't see it, so I get flank charged. I'm at, a few wounds. So I'm not feeling particularly great about that. These guys, they're just here to mop up my skeleton warrior horde. See what can happen there. In the center, go back into the skeleton warriors, of course. And Firebrand finally gets this charge. Now, I believe Firebrand was touching the wall at the beginning of their charge, so she might be hindered, but even hindered, that's 15 attacks on 4s. But 15, let's assume it was 15 on 3s, right? She's not hindered with Elite and then Crush 2, right? So that's like 10 or 11 hits, and then on 2s, right, that's like 9 or 10 wounds, right? I am a dash 15, so I do have a chance to survive, so that's nice. And then the Ancients here, it's a hinder charge into my archers, and I'm like, my archers are just going to fight you the rest of the game, I guess. And with that said, let's go on to the shooting. So we've got 1 Lachilodon, fires into my catapult, gets it up to 4 wounds, and actually does kill it again on that first roll, but if we roll 2 pictures back, yes, I do have this one within 6 now, so my undead ASP is protecting me. So this remaining catapult lives. The Phoenix fires off a heal into the Ceremonial Guard, getting them down to 1 wound remaining. They're going to be really difficult to dislodge, as I predicted at the beginning of the game. And this guy does manage to kill me, which sucks a lot because, again, my opponent got me to 4 to kill, so 13 wounds. And I believe that by doing 1 wound to me. So they rolled up and they hit the 4, and then they hit the 4, and I'm like, well, you got it this time. So I lose my Enslaved Guardians due to a slightly poor bit of positioning by me. And here, these guys get punched in their stupid faces and die. That's fair enough. And these guys get up to 9 wounds, which is still, is that, yeah, that's a roll because of brutal, right? That's boxcars. So my opponent does not hit it, does not hit the double boxcar there, and I live. And right here, yes, Firebrand does walk through the soul snare, fair enough. Up here, I take 4 wounds on my skeleton archers from the ancients. That's actually pretty good. I think, are ancients 10 attacks in a troop? But either way, they're hindered, so they're only hitting me on 4s and wounding me on 3s. So 4 wounds, pretty solid for them, but not a roll. And here's the end of the turn. So yeah, you can see things are looking pretty good for the Salamanders for a few reasons. One, I just lost these guys and these guys, these ones due to my stupidity. But I'm down to 3-4 unit strength, or I have 5 unit strength. I think this giant's in total in the center, while my opponent's at 4, 6, 8, or 8, 9 in total. So yeah, I guess I have the monolith too, right? So I have 5 unit strength. That's a bad spot for me, but especially these guys are only at 1 wound now. They're really untouchable. I'm gonna have a hard time. The grind here is just sort of again, it's a neutral grind, so I'm not looking to win or lose. I would prefer to win, obviously, this, but I'm just looking to sit there forever because I have +1 unit strength. But yeah, now I'm going to have to deal with this side, especially because the Clan Lord makes a canny move and just shuffles to the right, because now the mummies have to actually kill the Clan Lord to get into the scoring zone, because I'm just slightly too far away. So we're going to have to see what happens with turn 4 for the Empire of Dust. So turn 4 Empire of Dust, first up, the mummies charge, because of course they do. They've got nothing better to do. It is hindered, because, why not? The 1 giant and the Revenant champion go into the horde of Ceremonial Guard. Of course, I have a surge right here, ready to go. Or I've got, double surge on the bone giant, so I'm going to go for that. And over here, on the right side of the table, I go back in with my skeleton archers. I go back in here with the skeleton warrior horde. And then I'm going to take aim and fire at this remaining MacLeod, try to drop it. I'm going to have a hard time dealing with Firebrand now because I don't have any shooting that can actually target her. So yeah, I just run away with my undead ASB to make sure they don't get to use that hot duelist and just start killing off my characters too. And let's take aim. So first off, we've got the catapult. I know the catapult shot at that MacLeod because I didn't grab a picture of it, but we'll grab it later. Here we go with combat. Yeah, these mummies roll insanely well. So out of 12 attacks on 5s, I believe I hit with 10, and I do 4 damage on 3s to wound there. So that's really good. I do not hit the 9 or the 11 that I need to waver and or kill, but still, I'll take it. 4 wounds is a great start. And right here, yes, I get 2 giants and the Rev champion into the horde of Ceremonial Guard. I only managed 7 wounds, and that's not too bad. Like that's fine, especially because the Ceremonial Guard is, the Revenant champion hits the Ceremonial Guard on 5s due to being a cav unit. But both the Bone Giants, I rolled 5s for both of them for their bonus attacks, so that was 22 attacks. And I, 22 attacks on 4s and then 2s to wound. 7's not the worst, but I just flub it really hard on my hit. So I'm like, just giant things. It's what they do. So that's going to be very difficult for me to push through. The Skeleton Warrior Horde, I do manage 1 more wound, so get that little bit of healing back. And right here, I do manage 3 wounds against the ancients there, so I'm feeling okay about that. The archers, it's pretty funny. All their melee combats, they're just getting 1 more hit every round. So they're learning, right? And more of them are falling over. And here's the end of turn shot. So yeah, things are looking pretty good for the Salamanders. Now this charge might look a little weird, but remember, it's because this giant was a surge charge. So these guys set it up, and then this guy just has to align, to them. But yeah, so right now the Salamanders, again, they haven't changed in their unit strength. They're still dominant there, and my mummies are locked out. And I could easily lose this unit right here. I could lose a bone giant, and that might just clinch the game for them. So let's see what they get with their turn 6. So turn 6, Salamanders, my opponent is, really trying to eke every bit of of efficiency they can get out. They do make a small mistake here, though, is that the Clan Lord decides to countercharge the mummies. Should never do that. Should just back up, because you can back up any amount of distance. So just back up any amount and then make it so the mummies have to charge again hindered. So that's a mistake there. And in the middle, yep, the Ceremonial Guard here make a big mistake, which is they decide to charge my Revenant Champion. Now, I know what you're thinking. You have the Crystal Pendant. Did you tell your opponent? No. Because again, I did tell them at the beginning of the game, and I did remind them on turn 2 that I had it, right? And I was like, or turn 3, I think turn 3, that I had this Crystal Pendant, right? And I told them, you know, I have the item. It's just sort of playing into it where, yeah, I could tell them here and get some okay, you know, sportsmanship, but I don't think it's bad sportsmanship to use this item like this. Like it is one of those sort of gotcha moments with the Crystal Pendant where, you know, sometimes you just go like, just, you know, you charge the unit, that's what happened, and then you killed it and it blew up. So maybe they won't kill it though. We'll have to see. And over here on the right goes about how you might think, which is the Lakilodon. Oh, what happened there? Don't know. The Lakilodon here joins the charge, so joining in with the Rhinosaur Cav, trying to kill off the Skeleton Warriors now that they're at 7 wounds. And then the Ancients go back in here, so we're just grinding. And right here, Firebrand charges into my remaining catapult and just blows it up, so fair enough. And up here, the Ancients get my archers up to 5 wounds, so they kind of flub this round, but I'm okay with that, obviously. The Rhinosaurs plus the Lakilodon get me up to 13 wounds, which is pretty good, but that's still going to be, an 8 because of Brutal to kill me off, so yeah, they don't quite get it. 8 rerollable is difficult. And right here, the Clan Lord does 2 wounds to my mummies, so I guess that's not nothing. But, you know, it's effectively nothing because I'm fearless. And up here, yep, they do manage to kill off my Revenant Champion, and then they take 6 wounds in the process. So, you know, they got healed up by the Phoenix a little bit during their turn, but now they're sitting on 11 wounds, facing down 2 Bone Giants. Ooh, on turn 6, that's rough. So here's the end of turn shot. Now, this is it is a very interesting game now, right? Like, these guys could easily die. These guys probably won't. They'll probably be fine. We'll just grind. But, you know, if this is the end of the game, right? My opponent's at 4 unit strength, 6 unit strength, 7, 8, 9 unit strength versus my 3, 4, 5, 6 unit strength, right? So if the mummies kill off the Clan Lord and then overrun, I think all I need is an overrun of 1 to get the majority, or maybe maybe I need an overrun of 3. Maybe 1 gets the unit within. Yeah, okay. So 1 gets the unit within the 12 inches, which is what we initially thought, but it is the majority of your unit. So I need to get an overrun of 3 to get them in there. So yeah, if I get the overrun of 3 after killing that guy, I can tie it. If I kill off any of these units, I can tie it. So we'll see. So turn 6 for the Empire of Dust. Yes, of course I countercharge with my mummies into the Clan Lord right there. I don't regen any of the damage back, who cares? And then both the Giants charge into the Ceremonial Guard. So we're going to try to drop them. They are at 11 wounds, so we'll see. I countercharge with my Warriors into the Rhinosaurs, and I countercharge with my Archers into the Ancients, and I have no more shooting. Well, I have some spells, right? So first off, the mummies do manage to kill off the Clan Lord because, you know, they're baller, and do actually overrun the 3 that they needed. So they are within the scoring zone, so I've tied at this point. Then the Giants walk through the Ceremonial Guard and just juice them right up. And the Warriors manage to kill off the Rhinosaurs. So we're going to see, yep, and then these Archers, they do a few more wounds to the Ancients. I was actually hoping to kill them off this round because I think they're a dash 12, a dash 13, something like that. And if I killed them this round, I could start sidestepping, right? If I sidestep 3, I'm actually in the zone. And then if I sidestep 2, or I might not even sidestep, I might just, I'm trying to kill these guys off, so if there's a turn 7, I can walk into the zone, because these warriors will probably die. But let's see. This is what the end of the turn shot looks like for the Empire of Dust. So let's add up the unit strength again. We're at 1, 2, 3 total for the Salamanders, while I'm at 3, 4, 5, 6, 9. for the Empire of Dust. So things are looking pretty good, but I could lose this 3 very easily, and then, you know, I have to walk this unit over here, but it's probably a good game right there. But let's see if there's a turn 7, you know, get a little bit of revenge. There is not. So this is what the zone looks like. Again, it ends up being a 9-3 victory for the Empire of Dust. And you might be asking, like, well, okay, what would it look like if you didn't, you know, just completely screw your opponent over with the Crystal Pendant? I'm glad you asked, because we did actually keep track of it. My opponent actually has the wound marker over there. We kept track of it as if I didn't use the Crystal Pendant, as if the Revenant Champion was alive, right? And instead they charged the Bone Giant, because with the Bone Giants and Revenant Champions have the exact same defense. It was the exact same to hit or wound them, right? So we just used those numbers, which means the Bone Giant didn't die. And then when I charged in, I still killed the Ceremonial Guard with the double Bone Giant. I didn't even need the Rev Champ there to help at all, because I rolled average for my hits and wounds, but I rolled insane for my nerve. So yeah, the Bone Giant still would have managed to kill off the Ceremonial Guard even without the Crystal Pendant, so it's sort of a moot point. But anyway, an interesting game, really interesting. Dominate tends to be kind of like that when you're playing, when you're not really playing the most spammy list, right? Like trying to fight for the center with your dumb archers or your support units is always fun. So let's talk about the conclusions a little bit. Oh, I guess I've kind of covered my conclusion about the game. It was pretty fascinating going, you know, tit for tat with our poor nerve rolls right next to each other. I think the biggest determinant in terms of that was that my opponent got some cheeky little maneuvers, especially with that Clan Lord. That was really neat. But I think that overall I wouldn't say outplayed, but like my strategy was better than theirs, right? Like the plan that I had going in executed well, right? And secondly, I think the biggest thing is that my opponent had one terrible turn, right? They rolled a double 1 and they rolled that 3, right? Huge losses. While I had a poor, you know, like half a turn on each end, right? I got a double 1 there, and I got a bad roll after that, right? On the next turn, right? But neither of those are in one round. They didn't force multiply each other, you know, to be worse. So yeah, you know, it's just the way the cookie crumbles, I guess. Let's talk about the list a little bit. This Salamanders army, I still think is fairly interesting. I know my opponent was talking crazy talk of just running no tyrants in their Salamanders army, and I think that might be an interesting evolution, right? Because tyrants are they're an amazing unit, but they are still ogres effectively, right? So having that block of, you know, 120 wide, 80 deep at the 17 nerve bracket to kill is what most people build their armies to kill off, right? Like most of my hordes, you know, my combat hordes are built to kill a, you know, defense 5, 15, 17 unit. And tyrants aren't even defense 5, they're defense 4. They're fearless, which protects them against shooting a lot, but they are not defense 5. So it might be a pretty fascinating list. If they end up going for that, we'll have to see. Now, my army, yeah, I think this is significantly weaker than my other Empire of Dust army that looks a lot like this. Now, I was talking with Mark Taylor a little bit because he's had a lot of success lately with Empire of Dust, and I think he had a really good point about putting scavengers into the army. I just didn't really. This list is just my other list with points taken out, so I just downgraded units and downgraded items until I could fit it. So yeah, scavengers would probably do well in this army, but I'm not going to do that. The Revenant Champion with the Crystal Pendant, really good unit. 140 points for that is steep, but it's solid. I'm going to mess around with it in some other armies in the future, but for this one, I think it did the job I needed it, or I wanted it to do, because, you know, that's a defense 5, fearless, self-inspiring unit that then just explodes after you deal with it. So I'm pretty happy with that. The rest of the army, yeah, I mean, I've run it a lot. I've run all these units a lot. They're all excellent. Just showing up, you don't need Shobuk in an Empire Dust list. That's said a lot. That, you know, it's an auto include. Not really. Shobik's great, and I might adjust my other list to put Shobik into it, but definitely not an auto-include. In Empire, I would say the autos are the Monolith and the Soul Snare. Sepik Ray is also a really good unit, but also not auto-include. So anyway, that's my thoughts, or those are my thoughts on the lists and the game. List yours below if you want to, hear yourself talk on these. But I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, bye.